Are you clear on what the red line is here?
Well, what we know is that there's a humanitarian disaster unfolding right now in and around Rafah. We have not been able to get in significant shipments of humanitarian aid. And so no matter how many people are dying from Israeli military operations, there are people dying every single day from an inability to access food and medicine. This is ultimately accruing to the benefit, not the detriment of terrorist recruiting. And that's my big worry here. There's a moral cost to the number of civilians that are dying inside of Gaza. But when you continue to withhold food and aid from the people, that ultimately makes these terrorist causes stronger, not just in Israel, but around the world. Our own intelligence experts have told us that this is having a generational impact on terrorism. And so for many of us that want Israel to bring this military operation to a close and focus on the future political settlement inside Gaza, it is in part because we worry that this is a boon to terrorism groups growing all around the world.
Right. But the National Security Advisor was suggesting there that the line hasn't been crossed yet. We're looking at whether there's a lot of death and destruction. There already is a heck of a lot of death and destruction.
Yes, which is why I am amongst many of my colleagues who have called on Israel to pause military operations to try to get this humanitarian nightmare under control and to take the time to come up with a realistic solution for what Gaza looks like after the fighting stops. What you have seen in the past few weeks is that as Israel clears out of certain areas like northern Gaza, Hamas is just filling back in because there is no viable plan for governance. Israel has to take the time to both be less cavalier about the humanitarian costs, but also come up with a plan for what Gaza looks like after the fighting stops. And the fighting is going to stop at some point.
So I understand the intention behind building the pier, but $320 million, 3 soldiers injured. The thing is breaking apart because of rough seas. It's insufficient to need. Was it a mistake to do this?
No, it wasn't a mistake. I mean, listen, there's nothing that the United...
It's not even fully being delivered.
Listen, I think there'll be some rough moments in the early going of trying to get this pier operational. But you are absolutely right. Whether it's the airdrops or the deliveries on the pier, there's nothing that the United States can do that will substitute for the decision by Israel to open up crossings, to stop using these checkpoints as a means to interrupt the flow of vital goods. Israel has to make a commitment to solve the humanitarian crisis inside Gaza. The United States is not going to be able to do that for Israel.
I want to ask you about here at home, the southern border.